Hey, welcome back. I'm filming today on Tuesday the 18th of April, but a lot of the footage that you're going to watch in this video was actually filmed about halfway through March, and March was kind of a full-on month for me. I put out my first video at the very end of February and had a massive vulnerability hangover from that. I started working on my next video and I started pretty strong. I had an intro that I liked and I filmed the first part and I was pretty happy with it. And then I really just hit a wall. Firstly, I feel pretty comfortable sharing my story, but it started to dawn on me that to share my personal reflections on the Bible in a responsible way, I was going to have to do some Bible explaining and teaching. And that was really daunting to me. Because believe it or not, the Bible isn't all about me. It's got its whole own thing going on. And I want to do that justice, or at least aim to. I'd been listening to a bunch of Bible scholar podcasts where they'd talked about things they'd been studying for years and years, and they'd sort of just changed their position or learned something that they never knew before or whatever. And it made me feel like, what hope is there for me as plain old normal non-scholar person to understand the Bible, let alone try to explain it to other people. Secondly, in March we're getting into anniversary territory. It was early in March last year that we first found out that there were issues in the pregnancy, that we had that first scan that showed the massive size discrepancy between the twins. And I was thinking back around that time and thinking, I can't even imagine what that would have been like. That must have been so hard for them. And then going, oh, that was me, I remember. And it was really, really hard. And lastly, I was just in a bit of a dip, just feeling low. As the months go on for me, I've been finding that grief looks less like the kind of acute stuff that you might expect. And for me, it's looked more like just having hard weeks, hard days, or times with low energy and low mood where there's just not a lot of motivation. Kind of just feels like I get knocked down more easily. And as I'm filming this, I'm actually in a really good space. I'm having a really nice week. But I don't know, that's not always the case. Sometimes it's triggered by particular things like events or anniversaries or conversations, but sometimes it just happens, and it's just times where we feel sadder than other times. At 11 p.m. It's way past my bedtime, and I'm not long back from my dad's choir performance where they performed Looks, The Dawn from On High by Dan Forrest, and it was beautiful. 10 out of 10. My dad had solos, and if you're watching this, Dad, smashed it. It was awesome. He did really good. I've been filming and refilming and writing and rewriting this video over the past couple of weeks. Just struggling with doubt about whether I really have anything to add to this conversation. More broadly than that, I'd say I've been feeling kind of depressed in the last week or so. It was March last year when we first found out that Zach wasn't well and probably wouldn't live. And I'm feeling all the feelings, I think, fresh that I couldn't totally feel at the time because I had decisions to make and things to do, and I had to be brave and grown up. And I was trying to describe how I've been feeling to Ben yesterday, and I used the image of it feeling like the darkness and pain of the world is just this huge gaping chasm as far as the eye can see. or not see, I guess, because it's dark, and feeling like I had one little spark to offer against that. And like, what's really the point of holding up a spark against that much darkness and pain, and feeling a bit overwhelmed by the bigness of it. But I was super moved by these lyrics that actually are from the book of Luke, so we'll get to them in a couple of episodes' time. By the mercy of our God, the dawn from on high will break upon us, to give light to those who sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. Light from on high, come illumine us. The whole thing was about the theme of light, overcoming darkness. Of course, it's called Lux, which means light. And there was this beautiful poem written by Daniel Ladinsky that was in one of the songs. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. And it just really encouraged me so much and helped me remember that it's worthwhile to hold up my little spark against the darkness. And it's hard to do, but I don't do it alone. And I think I do it with the God of light. In the last video, we talked about Zechariah and his encounter with an angel and came up with a list of questions and talking points. And the thing I want to talk about today is the angel himself and what is going on there. Hello. Let's talk about angels, you guys. Now, if you're most Westerners, you might find the appearance of an angel in this passage somewhat unlikely, and I can totally understand how that and the miraculous pregnancy of a postmenopausal woman might lead you to cast the whole account aside as suspicious, because that kind of stuff just doesn't happen to most of us. And my goal in addressing this question is not to try and convince anyone that angels are real or that miracles happen or anything like that, but I guess just to explain why personally I'm not freaked out enough that I keep reading. For me, I already believe in a God that made the universe and can do whatever he wants. Like, he's got the power to do anything, and so the idea that he might send an angelic being to deliver a message isn't implausible to me. And the question becomes, I guess, do I believe that this recording of events is accurate? And there's a couple of reasons why I find this particular account believable. Firstly, I don't think that Luke's trying to convince us that angels just popped up all the time to everyone willy-nilly. I think that he's recording this precisely because it's an extraordinary event. Zechariah doesn't see the angel and go oh cool, hi. He sees the angel and he's shaken and overwhelmed with fear. I don't think Luke's setting it up like it's a normal part of daily life. I think it's just as surprising to the characters in the story as it is to us. There are a handful of instances where angels visit and deliver messages before this in the Hebrew Bible that Zechariah would have been familiar with, and so he would have had a framework for understanding what was going on maybe, but he wouldn't have been expecting an angel to pop up that day. I guess the other reason I find it believable is because it doesn't occur in isolation. it's part of this bigger story. It's not like Zechariah just walks out of the temple, claims to have seen an angel, and then that's the end. But the part of why Luke's included it is because the things that the angel claimed about John, and that he would prepare the way for the Lord, ends up being relevant because John prepares the way for Jesus. And so it's kind of part of this bigger story. It's not this kind of one-off thing. Well, do you just want something to bite on? I can get you something to bite on. Ugh. Now, I don't expect that to convince you of anything, but that's just why I'm okay with it. The other thing that this question raises for me, though, and a little bit, is that there's not a lot of information about angels in the Bible. Like, there's a few descriptions of angels appearing to people, like I mentioned, but it doesn't give us information about, like, what do angels look like? What are their names? Where do they live? What's their whole deal? All the information that I, as a kind of Western post-enlightenment person, like, I want to know. I sort of had to make peace in preparing for this, that I'm not going to be able to show up and, like, give you that information, because it's just not really in the Bible. Like, there's a few little snippets, but it seems like trying to work out what angels do and what are they like, what do they look like, and how do they interact or whatever, is kind of missing the point. And I find that trickier to get my head around, because I would love to have, like, a clear answer for everything, and I don't. It's just one of those things that it's like, yep, there's angelic beings, they deliver some messages, like one of them is called Gabriel, I guess, but, like, that's all you need to know. I find that a bit tricky sometimes. But there's a certain degree of accepting the unknown that comes with faith, I think. I think there's probably a lot more to know and be certain of than you might think, looking in from the outside. But there's also a lot of accepting mystery as well. And I've started to become very suspicious of anyone who seems to have an answer for everything. What's up? And just like that, episode 1 part 2 has come to an end. In the next one, I'm going to talk about the things that the angels said about baby John and who he would grow up to be and the things he grew up to do. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.